Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. We've got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in for the Gothenburg beers. A little bit of a channel tradition, as you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time. But for this review we are going to return to a brewery who have impressed me over the last few months, and this is a style of beer that I've never tried from them before. So always cool to go back to breweries that you know and to try different styles from them, I think. Usually that makes for a very interesting review. So for this one then, we are going to go back to DuckPond Brewing for the 6th or 7th time, if memory serves me correctly, and today we're having a taste of the Masala. So this one comes in at 12% ABV, and it's an Imperial Stout brewed with chai spices, lactose and vanilla. So I guess we could describe this one as an Imperial Milk Stout. So like I said, this is my first Imperial Stout that I've had from them. It was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt Assortiment and Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 1st of October 2020, and yeah, hopefully this is a very interesting beer. The last beer that I had from DuckPond, if memory serves me correctly, was the Mango Bird, and that's what I think this brewery has really become known for over the last little while, is these big kind of thick fruity Berliner Weisses and Goses and stuff like that. They do some really nice beers. I would highly recommend that you check out some of the beers from these guys if you get the chance. They are doing some very interesting sour beers at the moment, in my opinion. But like I said, first Imperial Stout from them, and fingers crossed this turns out to be another interesting beer. I've also had some really good New England IPAs from these guys, both under the name Mikrofon, which they used to operate under originally, and I think there was one that we did have when the brewery had only just changed its name to DuckPond Brewing as well. So yeah, hopefully this makes for another interesting review. I'm certainly very curious about this beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's see how we get on then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from DuckPond Brewing before, and you will no doubt see more added to that in the near future. This is always one of the breweries that I keep an eye out for in the Lokal Småskaligt. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about DuckPond Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've kind of mentioned to you already, DuckPond Brewing were previously known as Mikrofon Brewery. It's basically the microphone brewery, and this is the brainchild of Nikola Sarsevits, who is a singer and songwriter for the band Millencolin, and they've been making music since 1993. So the band was originally based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and they took a break and Nikola moved to Gothenburg, and in 2013 he began homebrewing with his friend Christian Silva while he was studying international marketing in Skövde, and the two were brewing, very small batches of 20 litres together, and then Nikola went to Berlin for 2 weeks to do a brewing course. I believe it was at VLB that he went to, if I remember rightly. But the two then started the company together officially, and it was based for a while in Nikola's house and brewing 200 litre batches at this time. But they changed their name in the summer of 2019. Basically because they said that it was the Mikrofon Brewery. They said it wasn't a very international name. People found it difficult to spell and things like this, and they just wanted something that was a bit easier for the international market. But they've been working to increase their output over the last few years and also their international sales. And last year, in 2019, they produced around 70,000 litres, and they're also one of the co-owners of the Wizard Brewing brand, which they share along with Morgendagens, another very good sour brewery, incidentally, that I do recommend that you check out. But as of October 2020, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced 21 different kind of beers according to Untappd, and that number, of course, is going to increase. And that's only the beers they've released under the DuckPond name. I'm not sure how many, I think they had about 20 or so that they released under the name Mikrofon Brewery as well. So I guess you could say this brewery have produced in the region of 45 different beers. But yeah, the beers that I had under the name microphone were really nice. And it's cool to see, you know, that the beer standard has continued under the name DuckPond. But you know, I don't see why a name change would change the standard of the beer that they're doing. But these guys are definitely one of the breweries that you should watch at the moment if you're interested in Swedish beer. Morgondagens that we mentioned a minute ago are also doing some of the really nice sours, like these guys have. Fermenterarna, you know, Brewski have got some very interesting sour these days. Örebro Bryghus, Jämerdalen Hantverksbryggeri away up north. Temple always used to have some interesting sours, and of course you've got the OG sour brewery here in Sweden, which is Bryggeriet as well. They've got some very interesting things. So yeah, not a dedicated sour brewery, but I would say those are that's the main thing that DuckPond, I would say, have become known for over the last little while, is these big kind of fruity Goses and Berliner Weisses. So yeah, if you're interested in those styles of beer, then DuckPond Brewing is one that you definitely need to check out. But the standard of Swedish beer is great these days. I've told you this in numerous videos, and I think DuckPond are one of the really interesting breweries at the moment. And there are there's a very vibrant craft beer scene up in Gothenburg these days, as I've told you many a time. But yeah, it would be lovely to have these guys on the channel for a Meet the Brewery segment. I do need to kind of make a trip up to Gothenburg and interview a lot of the different brewers up there. That's something that really needs to get sorted out at some point, because there has been quite a few invites and things. But DuckPond is one that I would absolutely love to film a kind of Meet the Brewery segment for. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you for the moment about DuckPond Brewing. A very interesting brewery, like I said, and one that I would highly recommend that you check out, particularly if you're a fan of these big fruity sour beers. So yeah, if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, this one has a really kind of funky type artwork. It looks like one of these mazes you would fill in on like a child's restaurant menu or something like that. It looks like one of these kind of puzzle things. I quite like that, I have to say. It looks very interesting. But yeah, Masala. To me, Masala is a type of curry. I'm not sure why the beer has been named that, but like I said to you, this one is supposed to be an Imperial Stout brewed with chai spices, lactose, vanilla. It does say on the side here that there's hazelnuts in this one as well, but it's a big 12% beast, which isn't surprising. I don't know if I paid 50 or 60 Swedish kroners for this, so that's about €5 for the can. About £4.25 or something like that if it's 50 kroners, maybe just a little touch more. So it could be a pound or a euro more. So yeah, this one would be about $6 US for the can. But yeah, for a 12% Imperial Stout, $3.30, that's not bad, I have to say. That isn't bad actually. So yeah, I have to say the artwork on this one's very nice. There you can see the DuckPond Brewing symbol on the side of the can there. Yeah, this one I think sounds very nice, and I'm really curious about this. My first Imperial Stout from DuckPond Brewing. So yeah, really nicely presented. This one released on the 1st of October 2020 as part of the Lokaltis Moskalid. Let's get it out and see how we're going. 12% Imperial Stout with chai spices, lactose, vanilla, and a little bit of hazelnut apparently. You could smell it. You can smell the spicy notes out of this one as you open it up. So yeah, oh, look at this. That's a big oily thing, that. This is going to be interesting. Let's say the Masala to me, I was thinking about the name of this, Masala to me is a type of curry, the chicken tikka masala. And I know in India, of course, they're saying chai. I couldn't remember what country chai tea was from, but India obviously produces a lot of tea and things like this. But it certainly looks like a very interesting beer. And just look, I don't know if you guys can see that on the camera, but see if we just show this a little bit. Look how that beer is sticking to the side of the glass. You can see that. That's crazy. This is a big, thick beast of a thing. Mental. But yeah, if we shine the light through this beer is black as night. That's a lovely, very dark ebony rosewood colour. There was about a quarter finger or so of a frothy, kind of dark tan head on this one. That's faded away to be pretty much nothing. When the beer is 12%, you're not expecting the head to stick around all that long, but there is just a little bit of a kind of foamy ring around the edge there, and it's a medium kind of beige tan colour. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. You can see a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the surface there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty. It does look pretty damn nice, actually. I really like how this goes together. Yeah, looks just like an absolute beast. There's nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is, but yeah, it certainly looks absolutely lovely. And you can smell the tea off this. You can smell that kind of chai spice sort of thing coming out of it straight away. So yeah, let's have a closer look at that aroma then and see how we go on. But as I said, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. So let's take a look at that. Ooh, that does smell really nice. It's a really interesting kind of blend, this one. I don't know what to compare this to, but I will say the aroma of this is absolutely lovely. I mean, it almost smells as if you've got this big oily chocolatey thing underneath, and it's just, it maybe reminds me a little bit of like Turkish Delight, to be honest. And Turkish Delight was something that I never liked. I never liked Turkish Delight, but it really reminds me of something like that. You know, people who are more well versed in teas and things like that will probably be able to review the aroma of this a bit better than me. I always used to joke that I wasn't English enough for tea. I just never liked tea. It just was something that I never ever took to. But you know, the aroma of this, I have to say, it is beautiful. And I found the same with coffee. I never drink coffee, but I think it can be a really interesting adjunct for big beers like this. Admittedly, I've had more coffee stouts than I have had like tea and spiced stouts like this. But there are a lot of interesting things you can add to these beers. But the first impression I have of this beer is the aroma for me. It really smells like a big oily chocolatey type thing. The chocolate that comes out of this one for me, it strikes me as being around, you know, like a sort of 50-60% cocoa, and it really, the oily chocolate is what dominates the aroma here, I think, underneath the spice. The spice is the kind of mainstay of the aroma, I would say, but underneath that you've got this big, thick, almost sludgy smelling oily chocolate sort of thing. So yeah, that lovely big kind of dark chocolate sort of thing. It smells as if there's a good bit of brown sugar in there as well, like a big treacly molasses sort of thing. This is obviously a very long boil stout. This has got to have at least 5 hours, I think, on the boil, because one of the things when you brew the beer, the longer you make the boil, the darker it's going to make the beer, of course, and there's no light coming through this, nothing. It's got it has a very tiny sort of Pepsi Cola kind of coloured edge to it, Pepsi Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, and that's the result of the sugars really caramelising in this one. It's also due to the types of malt that you use, because you will use chocolate malt and stuff in this. But yeah, this will be a very long boil stout, at least 5 hours, I would think, and so you get a lot of really thick treacly molasses note out of this one. And it doesn't come across as toasty, but it just comes across as if it's been boiled, you know, for a very long time. It could even be, you know, a 7 or 8 hour boil or something that they've done on this, because it smells, the brown sugars just come across as so thick and oily. You've got a nice bit of chocolate kind of blended into that. Yeah, you've got a nice bit of that big thick chocolate in there. The backbone of the beer really smells as if it's just a big thick oily treacly molasses brown sugar in there. You've got some nice chocolatey qualities to it as well, and you also have a little bit of you also have a good little bit of the spice coming in there. The spice really comes to the fore. It almost smells as if the spice is on the middle of the nose and then everything else is kind of sitting in the middle. I actually find this beer to be very kind of straight shooting in a lot of ways. Other than the big thick oily chocolatey thing, the big oily kind of brown sugars, the chocolate, I think, comes across as slightly milky in a way because of the lactose in the beer, and you do definitely get the nutty notes in there as well, and they come across as very infused. It comes across as that big chocolate, brown sugar, nutty and kind of milky chocolate infusion. That's what really gets the beer. It smells as if it's one big aroma just kind of grouped together, and then you've got the spice kind of sitting in on top of that. The beer in a way actually comes across as very straight shooting in terms of its aroma, and it's, how do we say that? It doesn't come across as if there's lots of different elements to it. It comes across as if there's just, everything is just kind of moulded together. So in that sense, the beer strikes me as very straight shooting in a lot of ways. So I do like that about it. Sometimes simplicity is the best way to go. It seems to me that this is going to, it strikes me as if this is going to be one of these beers that is very straight shooting, but it just is very well crafted and it tastes very nice. And I'm sure I've said this about some of the sours and stuff like that that DuckPond have done before. On the hoppy side, it almost actually smells as if it has a little touch of aniseed to it in a way as well. That's one of the other things that's coming out of this one, is a little bit of that aniseedy, slightly licoricey kind of thing, especially on the front of the nose. It just smells as if there's a little bit of that in here. So yeah, but it might just be the way that the kind of chai spices are coming out, but to me it definitely smells as if there's a wee bit of aniseed, licorice type stuff coming out of this. Lakritz, as the Swedes would say. But yeah, the aroma of that is very, very nice. And this is one of the things, sometimes your nose gets a bit saturated, and so you need to go away from it a little bit and then go back to it. But yeah, it's a lovely aroma out of this beer. Take a little bit of time and just you know, take that aroma in, because it is very, very nicely done. But yeah, aroma of this beer is absolutely lovely on the malty side of things. On the hoppy side, I would say we're getting a little bit of earthiness out of this one. There's also there is a tiny little touch of grassy character to this one, but for me the hops don't play too big a role in the aroma. On the fruity side, you do get a little bit of a kind of plummy, raisiny sharpness to it, and a little bit of that kind of phenolic, daty, almost daty kind of pruny sort of thing. It's got a little bit of that almost Belgian Dubel quality to it on the fruity side of things, that sort of cough medicine-y, syrupy type thing, Cavonia. It has a little bit of that, so yeah, a little bit of that kind of cherry, raisiny type note to it. A little bit of a fig, but then yeah, those kind of phenolic, daty, pruny type notes as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting it's a really interesting beer, this one, from that in my mind, from that perspective. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. Very straight shooting in some ways, but it comes across as a very infused and just lovely aroma, I think. So yeah, I really like how this how everything in this goes together. But yeah, take a bit of time to enjoy that aroma. We're going to have a taste of this one now. This one is the Masala, an Imperial Stout coming in at 12% ABV with chai spices, lactose, vanilla and hazelnuts apparently added into the brew. So let's go for it. My first Imperial Stout from DuckPond Brewing in Gothenburg. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål. Yeah, this one, this one's really nice, I have to say. It is quite a spicy stout, let's just say that. It actually reminds me in a way, to some degree, of the 15 stout that I had from Dugis a little while back, where the one that they did for their 15th anniversary with all these different adjuncts put into it. It almost comes across a little bit. It's got the same sort of vibe to it in that sense, but obviously not as complex and crazy, I guess we could say. But yeah, this beer is really, it's interesting. This one, the first impression I have of this is that it starts off very, very sweet, and then it just becomes more and more spicy the further that you go into the aftertaste. So that's a really interesting point to take away from this one. But yeah, where to start with this? This is really interesting. It takes me a little while to get my head around this beer, actually. So when you take this beer in, you've got that big, almost silky blanket of the chocolate and the brown sugars in this beer. That just blankets the middle of your palate, and what you're going to feel is that gradually the middle of your palate, it almost just feels as if you have like a kind of spicy, just a base of spice there, and that gradually becomes more and more prominent the further that you go into the aftertaste of the beer. You can feel it's just like a blanket of that kind of tea, chai, spicy sort of thing. That's really what forms the backbone of this beer on the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate, and when you take the actual liquid in, you can just feel the kind of the big sort of oily, silky chocolate and brown sugar that just blankets the middle of your palate and just spreads back actually. And I really really like how that goes together. Yeah, for me, it's really nice how that this beer really has quite a big transition to it, and it definitely leans. The further you go into the aftertaste for this one, for me, the sweetness drops out, and this beer really becomes a little bit more kind of spicy rather than anything. But I certainly like this one. I do like how this goes together. I can't think of a stout that I've had to compare this one to, but I do like what they're going for with this. So yeah, in the middle of your palate then, one thing I would say about this beer though, I said you could smell licorice in the aroma, but you actually don't get the licorice flavour in this one. I would definitely say you don't get that so much. You can detect a little bit of it kind of on the border between the sort of front third of your palate and the middle third of your palate. There's just a little bit of an oily, slightly aniseedy quality comes out of that, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, the thing as I said, when you take this beer in, the sort of spicy base, the kind of spicy base that the spicy base that we have of on this beer, and that is just the backbone of it. I think that's very interesting. But yeah, you can feel that big, thick, milky chocolate coming out of this one. It actually it comes across as a bit sweeter in the flavour, I think, than it did in the aroma. You've got that, as I say, that big, thick, lactosey chocolatey quality, and that sits in the middle of your palate, and it feels very thick because it almost just feels as if the kind of brown sugary notes, the big treacly molasses quality, it feels that all of that is kind of glumped, fat, kind of just holding together and very infused. So you get that big oily brown sugary chocolatey sort of thing sitting there in the middle of the palate, which is quite interesting. But yeah, on the back third of your palate, it's that kind of spicy. It's that basically, as I said, the backbone of the beer. On the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate, it's that spicy chai spice kind of thing, and that's interesting. The beer on the back third of the palate doesn't feel any kind of thicker for me, but the big thickness sits in the middle third of the palate, and it's that big oily, gloopy, slick, brown sugary chocolate infusion sort of thing. If you move towards the front, if you move gradually towards the front of that middle part of your palate, that's when you start to get some of the nutty qualities out of this one. You can definitely get the hazelnut in here. There's a few kind of woody undertones come out of this beer as well, and it's almost has a little bit of that kind of cedar woody type quality to it, this one. Yeah, it's almost, I think some people would maybe use the word tobacco to describe some of the flavours that you're getting out of this as well. It's interesting in that sense. It does remind me a little bit in some ways of some of the more spicy Scotch whiskies that I've had over the years. But it's a really interesting one. This isn't like any other stout that I can think of that I've come across before. It really is quite kind of crazy and unusual for me. But yeah, it is in some ways very straight shooting, but it just has a really, really nice flavour to it. So yeah, spicy kind of, that kind of chai backbone to it, then the big oily thing sitting in the middle third of your palate, a little bit of nutty undertone to it. It feels like the lactose in this beer does give the beer just a little bit of the vanilla quality. You can feel the lactosey vanilla notes mixing in with that whole chocolatey brown sugary mass that the beer has in the middle of the palate. But yeah, it's one of these stouts. It's actually it's really straight shooting in a sense that there's not so many different flavours coming out in different places in the palates. It seems that you've got the spice base and then the big oily ball of stuff sitting there in the middle of the palate, and in that sense it's quite straight shooting in what it's going for. And I've just, as I say, this is a very difficult stout to describe because I've never had anything that is quite like this that I can think of. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate there is a little bit of earthiness to this one, and as you move further along the side of the palate it does develop a little bit of a herbal quality. As you reach the front corners of the palate there's a tiny touch of a floral note, and then round the very front curve of the palate there's just a little bit of a lighter grassiness. Then on the front third of the tongue, you have a nice, you do have a little bit of a kind of red fruity character coming out of this one. So yeah, the fruits that come out of this are actually quite sweet in a lot of ways. So for me, it's a very you see this in the aroma. It came across as being a little bit sharp and kind of cherry and kind of raisin like, but it comes across quite differently, I think. In the I believe there is definitely an element of a red and kind of berryish fruit quality to the beer, and the phenolic note that you get in the aroma is a bit different in the flavour as well, which is interesting. So yeah, as I always say, the fruity notes come out in that juicy oily bubble that you get on the front third of your tongue. So if you go towards the back of that, I think there is a little bit of a kind of raisiny cherry sharpness as you kind of go further into this one, but as you move further forward, it's got a nice little bit of I would say it's got a nice little bit of that kind of phenolic, that kind of datey, pruny, cakey sort of thing. This beer, the more that I drink of this, the more cakey it starts to become, and you do get that. It smells like a kind of boozy fruit cake that you get on the front third of your palate sitting underneath these fruits. So yeah, a little bit of a cherry, a little bit of a kind of raisiny note, and as you move further forward, you do get a bit of the fig, but then you get these datey, pruny, kind of boozy, almost Christmas pudding like notes, and then on the front tip of the palate, you do get a few kind of blackberry, blackcurranty notes out of the beer, but it does have that almost phenolic quality that you'd expect of like a Belgian double. I've always found the quadruple to be a bit more rounded, a bit more sweet, but I've always found the double to be a little bit more kind of phenolic and things like that. Yeah, it's really nice how that how everything in this beer just goes together. So yeah, this is a really interesting one. As I say, this is a very quirky beer in a lot of ways, and it's one that I really like in the sense that it's tested my palate a little bit. I feel that this is not one of my best kind of reviews that I've done, because it's just quite a difficult one to get your head around. But what I will say is that it's a lovely beer, and I certainly do like this. It kind of shows another dimension of what a modern kind of imperial stout can be. Can we describe this as a pastry stout? I'm honestly not sure, but it's certainly a big sweet imperial stout. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And the exact definition of pastry stout for me is a little bit kind of blurred, but it's a lovely beer, this. And to be honest, knowing what DuckPond are like as a brewery, I'm not surprised with this one. I really am not surprised. But it's a lovely beer, so thumbs up to DuckPond Brewing with this one once as well. But this is one that you definitely want to share with your friend, which is exactly what I'm going to do after the video. And I can feel the booze in this one going to my head already, because it's 12%, it's a monster, but a big sweet beast of a thing. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, definitely a very full-bodied beer. The carbonation is very smooth in this one. It's a very kind of silky and very thick mouthfeel in a lot of ways. In terms of IBUs, I would actually say that this one is very low. It does have a spicy character to it, but whether you can count that as bitterness, I'm not so sure. This one really strikes me as more of a sweet, spicy stout in that sense. So yeah, to be honest, very unclear on whether I should count spice as IBU, but that spicy note does kind of come out of it more and more, and it does kind of mellow out a little bit. Once your palate adjusts to it, you can really feel that this beer mellows out a little bit. You do get one or two of those little kind of aniseedy type notes to the beer as well, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I do like how everything goes together in this one, because it strikes me as a very infused imperial stout. So it's one that's definitely worth trying if you're into these sort of things. If you like the big kind of tea spices and stuff, then you are certainly going to enjoy this beer. Camera control going a bit crazy there, guys. But yeah, I think this is a very nice imperial stout. So yeah, big, thick, full-bodied thing, very silky in its mouthfeel, smooth carbonation. It really is nice. Low IBUs for me. I would be surprised if this one's even 10 IBUs, to be honest with you. But yeah, big, thick, kind of sweet and smooth mouthfeel in a lot of ways, and the fruitiness out of this is big and oily and slightly juicy to an extent as well. It's more of an oily fruity character, and I do like the kind of cakey elements that develop out of this beer as well. It's got a lot of very interesting kind of things going on with it. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. I really like how this goes together. So yeah, I'm very impressed with this one from DuckPond Brewing. I'm curious to see what other stouts they'll bring out over the next little while. But yeah, if you like quite a big cakey, slightly spicy Imperial Stout, then this is one that I would definitely recommend that you check out. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Lovely big full-bodied, silky smooth Imperial Stout, this one, but the spice is really interesting. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Masala, a 12% Imperial Stout with chai spices, vanilla, lactose and a bit of hazelnut in it from DuckPond Brewing. It's a very quirky beer, this, and I'm glad I was able to review it for you here. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this one. This doesn't feel like one of my most kind of accomplished reviews, if you like, but it's just a very quirky beer. And sometimes you find that from the Swedish breweries, of course. They've got some really interesting things up their sleeves. But yeah, really cool to review a different style from DuckPond as well, and I'm curious to see how they progress with these Imperial Stouts. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from DuckPond Brewing. We will return to these guys at some point in the near future, I'm very sure, because they're always releasing interesting stuff. But yeah, check out my social media, check out DuckPond Brewing, let me know some other spicy Imperial Stouts like this. It'd be quite interesting to find that, and once I get through the sort of massive beer that I have at the moment, we will see about reviewing some of those for you. But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Masala Imperial Stout at 12% ABV from DuckPond Brewing, based in Gothenburg on the west coast here of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers, and thanks for watching.